Welcome back to Frost Astrophotography. In this video, I'm going to attempt to hypertune my SkyWatcher HEQ5 Pro mount. And hypertune in this case means that I'm going to replace all of the ball bearings in the mount and also replace the grease with a high performance, low temperature grease that will perform better in low temperatures. I would suggest you check out my earlier videos of modifying and adjusting my HEQ5 Pro mount, and that is part 1 and 2 of adjusting the backlash and also installing the Rowan belt modification. Before we do any modification on this mount, I will show you the stiffness when trying to rotate. Loosen the clutch and then try to push the RA axis to rotate. As you can see, it's doing about 1 revolution. If I do the declination, I can't get this to rotate more than half a rotation, I would say. In preparation for the Hypertune, we have some paper. We have 6 of the 606 2RS1 ball bearings, SKF, and 2 of the 30205 J2Q ball bearings, also SKF, and we have 4 smaller ball bearings for the worm gear drive. We also have some low temperature, high speed ball bearing grease, some rubber gloves, screwdrivers, ball bearing extractor, and some pliers. And finally, assorted Allen keys that might be needed. Starting with the deck axis, remove the cover plate for the Rowan belt mod. In order to loosen the plate holding the motor, you loosen the 3 screws in the corners here. On mine, they are equipped with black washers. You can take a screwdriver and push it towards the gear. That will slack the belt. Gently remove the belt and remember to put it back below, not above, then it won't fit. First step, remove the saddle. You have 3 grub screws that you want to loosen. You can see underneath the saddle that there is a locking washer, but you don't actually need to remove this. Just keep it the way it is. Turn the mount around and then open the clutch for the counterweight bar and gently slide that out on the other side. Now on the back side you have 3 holes for another 3 grub screws, and you stick your Allen key in there and gently loosen them, but don't take them out. When you've loosened that, you can tighten the clutch, and then you should be able to unscrew this part. When you remove that, you can see the shaft and one of the cone ball bearings at the end here. So turn this assembly one more time. Now we're going to loosen the worm carrier. Now this is one of the adjustment bolts for the worm carrier. So we open that, and we have a similar down below. We open that too. When that is done, you loosen these three and remove these three bolts to remove the worm carrier itself. And now you can simply remove this entire assembly, starting with the coned ball bearing from one side first. And the entire assembly comes out with ease. And there you can see the ball bearing still left in here, and the ball bearing housing still left on this side. So if the ball bearing does not want to come out manually like this, you can feel that it is really stuck in here. You will have to use an extractor tool to get that out. So the ball bearing removed. If you don't have an extractor, you can always use a screwdriver to lightly tap it out, because it will reach. So you can use it from this side and on the other side. I've also removed the coned ball bearing housing here. So this is the coned ball bearing, and this is the normal ball bearing. On this one you can actually feel the tiny kinks in it. It is not smooth at all. So I'm hoping this will be a great improvement. Could be just dirt in here, I don't know. But I don't like the feel of that or the sound. So this is the shaft. This is the worm gear that attaches to the worm drive in here. You obviously can't hear that, but when I rotate this, there are tiny bumps. There are kinks, almost like there's metal shavings or something like that inside the ball bearing. So that's not good. We'll clean this off. I will clean it a bit better later. Now we need to ease up this red washer. Put that aside for later. Before trying to remove this, make sure you open the clutch. And give it a proper cleaning. You can try and remove the ball bearings by hand, but if they're stuck like mine, use the screwdriver and hammer and gently remove them. Don't use a hammer on the replacements, because when you use a hammer on it, you can never use it again. Make sure that you remove all the grease and residue in the grooves here. Make sure to clean the inside here as well of the shaft. Time for reassembly. The shaft is clean. The housing has been cleaned here. The worm gear has been cleaned. And I have 2 new SKF ball bearings. So first I'm taking a bit of this high performance ball bearing grease from SKF, and I'm gently applying a very thin layer inside. Like that. Then I take this and also very, very gently, just a little bit, a thin applied here on the inside. I'm taking my first ball bearing. Gently putting it into place. Taking my second ball bearing here. You can actually put a little bit grease around it like this. But you really need to work this in exactly at an angle. You can't be off. Like that. Taking this now and putting it back onto the shaft and into the casing. It should slide down all by itself. Make sure that you don't have the clutch engaged. Replace the red washer. Like that. Bring out the worm drive carrier. You will need to remove that with an Allen key. Now this can be a bit tricky. If you can see, I don't know if you can or not, but inside here you have two notches, and that is a ring holding this shaft in place. You need to work that out with a special tool if you have one, or with a screwdriver very gently. It's not in there very hard, as you can see. I can just gently screw it around with my small screwdriver here. Looks like this. Then just remove the entire assembly. I don't know if you see this, but there's actually a lot of dirt in here. Small metal shavings, maybe from the manufacturing process or something. And that is definitely not good. And also remember the orientation now. It's a bit longer here. You want to keep that to this side because you need to attach the sprocket or gear. So remove the ball bearings. And then clean it. You don't want any debris whatsoever left in there. There we go. Time to clean this. Take your replacement ball bearings. And then assemble the worm drive back. Gently replace the special screw. And tighten that with a screwdriver. This was actually really loose, so don't tighten it too much. You can also check on the other side to make sure that it's fit. And that's much better. I can't hear any noise. It rotates really, really smooth. It's not catching on anything. I think this will be good. So the final step for this one is to lubricate the worm drive. This way you can actually lubricate generously, I would say. So make sure that you at least cover all of the threads on the worm drive here. You put it in there good. But you don't really need to have it anywhere else but on this worm drive. Take this and you can put some lubrication on here as well. Before putting this back, we need to place one more ball bearing on the mount. We also need one of the coned ball bearings. And I don't think we need to grease that up too much. But I want some of my high performance grease on there. Remember that we don't have any high speeds or high loads on this application, so don't need much. And remember that you need to put this in completely straight and leveled. If you don't have a rubber mallet, you can take a piece of wood like this. So when putting it back, you can gently thread the worm carrier here, so you know that it is roughly in place, but don't tighten it. And now be careful that you don't drop this out. So lock it like that when you get the other parts. So first the ball bearing. So yeah, I think it's easier to push the ball bearing in and then push the rod from the other side and up. And like I said, don't drop this. Lock it and then get the remaining part. Oh, and don't forget the ring. Put the ring on here first. So make sure this can spin easily, and don't over tighten this, because I've noticed that if you do, this doesn't spin as good. So tighten it ever so slightly. Make sure you have a nice spin. Lock that, and then tighten the grub screws in the holes here. Now you need to adjust the backlash and get this to engage, because as you see, the worm is not engaged at the moment. And this screw moves it closer to the gear, and the screw underneath moves it away. So we try to turn that in, and we tighten this a bit. So now we open this and we tighten this just to simulate some backlash. You hear that? So now we open this a bit, tighten this. Tighten this some more. Open this some more. Tighten more. So the goal is to have no backlash, of course. Just a little bit. You don't want it to have it, you don't want to have it too tight, because then you will have binding. So like that, I would say. When that's done, you tighten the carrier. So make sure that you are in position. Have the right Allen key. And then try to line up the holes here, the indentations, with the grub screws. And then tighten them up. We'll give it a go, a spin. And if you remember before this modification, this went half a rotation at best. So that's a great improvement on the deck. And for this axis here, you want to keep the one of the grub screws on the flat part here. We'll use this one. So I would say I'm fairly happy with that. Now the only thing we need to do is to do the right ascension axis. Okay, it's time for the RA axis. First we will remove the belt here. You can tighten this if you want to. You can remove this right now. So for the RA, the shaft is inside here. You will have to remove this. So if the polar scope is a bit hard to grip, you can use some rubber gloves. And for the next step, it is much better to remove the head from the tripod and place it upside down. First, we need to remove the control box, or at least loosen it, so that we might access the screws to the worm drive adjustment. Then we can loosen the worm drive adjustment. Then we have some very small grub screws up here. 2 of them that you need to loosen. Don't unscrew these. When you've done that, you can unscrew this locking. And you can remove the ring. So this next piece you can remove with a hammer and a screwdriver, or a big piece of pliers. But first, remove or loosen the 3 grub screws. If it's tight on here, you can take a hammer and a screwdriver and gently tap it. Or you can use something like this to gently unscrew it. And then just using your fingers. Then you will need to loosen the worm drive carrier and completely remove the screws. When that's completed, the entire assembly should come up and off. Don't forget to loosen the clutch. So looking at this is the cone ball bearing. Remove that. And on the other side, we have the normal ball bearing. Remove that as well. Now in here we have a lot of grease, so you better clean that out. There we have the old one. And now for the new bearings. Make sure to wipe down the button on the clutch lever here, so that if you have grease on that, the clutch might fail on you. I'm going to wait with the cone ball bearing, so we will set this aside for now. There we have the worm drive. And just like the other one, it does not feel smooth. So we will clean this and remove the old ball bearings. So just a reminder, don't do this for bearings that you want to keep and use again, because you risk damaging them. And now for some thorough cleaning. Something like that. And now the worm drive carrier. So the same procedure as the last time. Special washer. Remove the old ball bearings. And clean the worm drive. And clean the carrier itself. Take out your new ball bearings. That feels great. So, taking the special locking ring, Make sure that you don't tighten this too much. Clean the shaft. And re-lubricate the worm drive. And you want to be generous. You want this to be entirely filled. And you want to insert new ball bearings into the worm drive gear. So we take some grease here and gently lubricate the inside. Just a thin layer, you don't actually need this for the ball bearing. And on the other side. So that didn't want to go in. We'll have to take out, if you have a rubber mallet. If you don't, take a piece of wood. Like that. And on the other side. That went in without any problems. You want to apply some grease on this as well. Not too much. The red washer. And now you can actually replace the screws holding this in place now before putting on anything else. And now for the last ball bearing. This is the last cone ball bearing. I'm going to grease that up a bit. And some on the inside wall here. Place the housing. Then take the assembly. Slide that onto here. and slide it back. And when this is on, you take this, screw that into place. Then tighten the grub screws. Attach the ring and the locking ring. And the grub screws on the locking ring. The polar scope. And then screw back the top plastic cover. We're now going to adjust the RA, but for that we're going to put the head back on the mount. I have the head back on the tripod, and now it's time to adjust the backlash for the RA axis. And as you can see, it is not so tight right now. Significant backlash. So let's start adjusting. Time to put back the belt. Okay. The Hypertune has been completed. And I've done both axes. I'm happy with the smoothness here in the declination. And now it's time to test to see the RA. So last time I think it made one rotation, maybe half a rotation. So let's see what the result is. I would say that that is a big improvement. So I'm very happy with that. Next thing is to see if there is still a proper night, because we're in April right now and here at 63 degrees. I think I have about 2 hours of cosmic dark a night if the skies are clear. Hopefully sun soon, and then I will test to see the guiding. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I do hope you consider subscribing to my channel. And if you want to see me do a video on something special, please leave a comment below. Until the next video, I wish you have some clear skies.